So we have looked at, there are three ways that water can move up the xylem vessel. So there are three ways, okay? It can move up the xylem vessel from the root to the stem to the lip. So number one is cohesion tension theory, which we have already explored yesterday. So it involves cohesion, which is hydrogen bond. Tension is the suction force or the negative pressure or the pulling force due to the evaporation of water plus the cohesion that pull the string of water molecules up the xylem vessel and into the palisade mesophyll cells in the leaf. So this is cohesion tension theory or transpirational pull. Then we have also looked at capillary pull, where the movement of water up the xylem vessel is due to the adhesion of water molecules to the wall of the xylem vessel. And exactly it adheres to where it forms hydrogen bond with the cellulose as well as with the lignin, the OH part of the cellulose and the OH part of the lignin. Okay. And then we also mentioned that the diameter of the xylem vessel is very important. Okay. So xylem vessel diameter. It must be small enough. Okay. So it must be small enough so that when you have got so let's say it's column, water column, it is small enough so that your cells, the water molecules at the side, when it form hydrogen bond with the wall, it also needs to be able to pull and support those cells that are found in the center of the water column. So those that are not forming bond with the wall, how can they maintain themselves up here is because they are being held. Okay, they're being held by this hydrogen bond from the water molecules that attach to the wall. So because of that, the xylem vessel cannot be very wide. Because when the xylem vessel is very wide, that means the center will contain even more water molecules. So when you have got even more water molecules, the mass would have increases, right? So therefore, the force of the water molecule that's being pulled down by gravitational force, so F equals to mg, will be very high when the diameter is larger. Okay, so when the diameter is larger, then you will have got more water molecules in the center. So when you got more water molecules, therefore the force from the gravity that pull the water down becomes stronger. So therefore, that will cause the force of the hydrogen bond between the water molecules to the wall. Okay, this force here, right, due to this bond here, it will not be strong enough. It will not be strong enough to hold on to this mass of water molecules in the center when you got too many. So that's why the diameter has to be small. Small enough for what purpose? Small enough to ensure that, when my okay, it must be small enough to ensure that the water column will not break. Okay, so please add this into your notes. Xylem vessel diameter must be small enough to ensure that the water column will not break. Why does it break? Is because the column of water over here is too heavy. So the hydrogen bond here can no longer hold them together. So they will break off because the force going down is stronger than the force going up. Okay, so that's why it will break. So the force going down, because there's too many water molecules, so it's very heavy. So the force going down will be stronger than the force that's being pulled by this adhesion. Okay, the hydrogen bond is attached due to the adhesion. So therefore it will break. So the diameter must be very small so that it's not too heavy, the water column. Okay, So that one I have mentioned yesterday, water column will not break. However, the xylem vessel diameter also must be big enough. Okay, it must be big enough to reduce resistance to water flow. So therefore, you can say that the diameter of the xylem vessel is bigger than the diameter of the sieve tube, so that it will reduce resistance to water flow. Okay, so that is something that you need to know about the diameter of the xylem vessel. So now there are third way how water can be transported up the plant. So the third way is called the root pressure. So root pressure is due to the hydrostatic pressure that's created at the bottom of the xylem vessel. So it's different from the cohesion tension, where it is a pulling force, right? It's a pulling force above the xylem vessel. So in the region, in the upper region of the xylem vessel. So this pulling force or transferrational pull, okay, is cohesion tension theory. Whereas root pressure actually operates from the root, which pushes the water column up. Okay, capillary pull is because the water molecules climb up the wall by adhesion, and then it also pulls the rest of the water molecules up with it. Okay, so root pressure is due to what? Root pressure is due to, hang on, what is this? This one doesn't look correct to me. Okay, so root pressure is due to the surrounding cells. So these cells here that surrounds the xylem vessel in the root will actively secrete salt into the xylem vessel. So when you increase salt in xylem vessel, what will happen to the water potential in the xylem vessel? Can you all type your answer in the chat? So when you increase solute, right, into the xylem vessel, what will happen to the water potential inside the xylem vessel? So it will increase, isn't it? Okay, it will increase. Increase? No lah, how can it be increased? Wow, only Yun Yun got it correct. Psi will decrease. Right? A solute is a molecule that is soluble in water. So when a solute enters the xylem vessel, it's going to cause water molecule to surround it to form hydration shell. So therefore, the number of free water molecules becomes less. So therefore, the water potential will drop. Okay? Right? So whenever you increase substrate, the water potential will drop. So therefore, it will cause water to start to move into xylem vessel from surrounding cell, okay, down water potential gradient. So therefore, you can see the principle whereby wherever the solute travels to, the water will move together with it, because wherever the solute goes to is going to reduce water potential. So therefore, water will automatically move together with it, because it will always cause a water potential of a particular location to become lower than surrounding. Okay, so Junior, I'm going to add one more point for you. Two marks for you. Yun. Wow. Okay. Yun, you are. Now I've got a few students having the same marks. Quite a number of students having the same marks. Okay. All right. So root pressure pushes the water up the xylem vessel is because of the active secretion of salt, right, or other solutes into the xylem sap from the surrounding cells. So this one will reduce the water potential of xylem vessel. So water moves into xylem vessel by apoplast pathway. So do I call this osmosis or diffusion? Can you type your answer? Osmosis or diffusion? Diffusion, correct, Andrea, diffusion. Diffusion because xylem vessel element is a dead cell. So there's no cell surface membrane. So in order to enter the lumen, It doesn't pass through the membrane, so it is diffusion. So this one all of you know, right? Okay. So we are using opportunity to revise the basic thing about water movement. So why is because xylem element is dead cell and no CSM and no cytoplasm. So the only way it can enter to the cell is through apoplasm. It means the only way the water can enter xylem vessel is it must pass through the cell wall of the xylem vessel. Then when it enter the lumen is totally empty one. There's no cytoplasm, there's no cell surface membrane. So there cannot be symplast inside the xylem. Okay, so the only way is apoplast. So this root pressure is very interesting. So what happened is that usually we know that water is transported up the xylem vessel, right, by transpirational pull. So which means to say, if I chop off this region of the plant, and because this xylem vessel is no longer connected to the leaf, so there is no transpirational pull, I will expect that the water will not be pulled up. But it's very interesting to note that this process called guttation can happen to the plant. Now, in the early morning, right, when you go out to your garden and you look at the grass, a lot of the grass, you will see that a lot of water droplets have formed on the grass. So these water droplets, right, this process where these water droplets actually come from the grass. So what happened is that nighttime, when there's no sun, of course, all the stomata will be closed. Okay, it'll be closed. So there will be no transpirational pool. But how come in the early morning when you look at the grass, there seems to be water coming out from the grass? So it's because even though there's no transpirational pool from the top, there is this root pressure from the bottom in the root there, which pushes the water to go up. So when the water goes up the xylem vessel, it goes into the leaf, and then the water will come out from a special pore. Special pores in the leaf, especially the grass, and then you start to see water droplets on the grass. So this process where the water comes out from the leaf by root pressure is called guttation. Okay. And another thing is, if you, let's say for example, if you really cut this part of the plant, so this is the root, so you cut off the root part, cut into the root part, and you see that now the root is not connected to the leaf, so there's no transpirational pool. But after some time, you start to see water coming out. Okay, the water starts to come out already, no? So this water is still being transported upwards, but not by transpirational pool, but by the root pressure, which pushes the water column up. So that's another way to show that there is a root pressure. Okay, so it's very interesting, right? So there are three mechanisms that can be used to transport the water up the xylem vessel, not only one way. So it's wonderful. The design of the plant is very wonderful. Okay, so what have you covered so far is we have looked at water movement from the soil to the root to the stem to the leaf and then to the atmosphere. Then how water transport from the soil into the root is down water potential gradient. Then from the root to root is by apoplast and symplast pathways. And then in the endodermal cells, because of the Casparian strip, which is waterproof, so the water is forced to pass through the cell surface membrane and the cytoplasm of endodermal cells. So it's symplast pathway only in endodermal cells. And then after that, the water will continue to move from cell to cell and then go into the xylem vessel by apoplast. It means when it enters the xylem vessel is by apoplast, okay? But when it moves from cell to cell, before the xylem vessel, it can be symplast or apoplast. So after endodermal cell, continue with symplast and apoplast, okay? From stem to leaf, three ways for water to travel up: cohesion tension, capillary pull, and root pressure. So this is a summary of what we have covered so far, okay? So we will proceed to do some passive questions. So C, describe the process by which water passes from the soil into the root hairs. So who wants to try? Chu Jiaying?
By osmosis down the water potential gradient.
Okay, by osmosis Down water potential gradient. When do you use the word osmosis?
When it's partially permeable membrane.
So across the partially permeable membrane. Can I say diffusion or not?
No.
Cannot. Why cannot? Okay. So your answer is correct. So this is the root epidermal cell, okay, with the root hair. My root hair is a bit too long. Okay, never mind. Just want to illustrate. So the root hair is also part of the cell. So therefore, there will be cell wall at the root hair as well. Okay. So when the water enters the root hair, there are actually two pathways. It can be going into the cell wall, and then it continues to travel along the cell wall by apoplast pathway. So in this way, the water will not enter the cell, right? It only goes to the cell wall of the cell. Second way is the water pass the cell wall, pass through the cell surface membrane and go into the cytoplasm. So therefore, there are two ways of water movement, right? The first way is actually it's called the diffusion, because the water doesn't pass through the membrane, okay? And then the second way is by osmosis, because the water passes through the cell surface membrane. And then both diffusion and osmosis, they move because down water potential gradient. Okay, so therefore, let us check whether our answers are correct. So osmosis or diffusion, 1 mark. Down water potential gradient, 1 mark. And then if you say osmosis, you can say through a partially permeable membrane is another mark. You see, they reject semi-permeable, so don't use the word semi-permeable. Okay, so there you go, you get the 2 marks. So next partial question. So this is a figure which shows the lower region of the leaf. So you got the palisade mesophyll, cells, xylem vessel, and then the lower epidermis. So the question asks a student to explain how water moves from the xylem vessel to cell B. So from here, the xylem vessel is filled with water, how the water moves from xylem vessel into the cell B. Altogether got 3 marks. So who wants to try? Chloe?
By osmosis.
So that means the water from xylem vessel will move across the cell surface membrane into the cell by osmosis. Correct. By osmosis is correct. So you get one point for by osmosis. I don't want to write my answer there. I write my answer here, okay? Hang on. Okay. Okay, by osmosis. So any other points to elaborate to get the 3 marks? Jing-er?
Down the water potential gradient.
Osmosis down water potential gradient. Okay, yes.
Through a partially permeable membrane.
Okay, through a partially permeable membrane, PPM. So that is got 3 points here already. Okay, so you get. So I give you 2 points, Pei. Anyone got any more points that you want to add? You can type into the chat. Sufyan, do you have any points you want to add? I think that there are more points because this is about water from xylem vessel moving into the cell in the leaf. So what did you learn? What is the name that you have learned about this process? What is it called? Oh, Daniel said cohesion. Yes, very good. Remember you learned the cohesion tension theory. So therefore, why the cell can move Why the cell? Why the water can move into from the xylem vessel into the leaf cell is because of cohesion tension, whereby cohesion is due to the hydrogen bonding, right? Right? Hydrogen bond between the water molecules. So that's cohesion. Tension is because of there's evaporation of water from the surface of the mesophyll cell. Right? So I think, can we say apoplast pathway and symplast pathway? So let us check the answer, okay? So Daniel, you have your point. Daniel. Sorry, is it Daniel? No, it's Sufyan, isn't it? Just like Sufyan or Daniel? Me, Daniel says, okay. Me is Daniel, okay, I understand. Daniel, I need to find, okay, right, there you go, I found you. So let's look at the mark scheme. You see the first marking point is cohesion tension. It's because you've learned that how water from xylem vessel move into the leaf cell is by cohesion tension, right? So 1 mark for cohesion tension, and the cohesion is because of hydrogen bonds, all right? First, the water must pass through the cell wall. So step number 1, it will pass through the cell wall, so it is called apoplast pathway, because it's from the cell wall of xylem vessel to cell wall of the mesophyll cell. So this is called the apoplast pathway. And after the cell wall, the water will pass through the partially permeable membrane. So it looks like they want the student to write the term partially permeable membrane rather than cell surface membrane. Of course, if they put an AW here, means if you write cell surface membrane, I can give you mark, okay? AW means any other word with the same meaning. Any other word with the same meaning. But since they use partially permeable membrane, I think this is it's a more accurate word to use, okay? So by osmosis, down water potential gradient. So I can see that in the mark scheme, right, the answers are, the points are very systematically arranged. Can you see that? It's step by step, you are explaining the process, very step by step. Right, it must pass through the wall, then only you pass through membrane, then you go into the cell surface cytoplasm. It's by down water potential gradient. So very, very systematically explained. Okay. So now C, draw labeled arrows. See, you must draw labeled arrows. That means you must label or no. On the figure 3.1 to show the direction in which water flows between cells A, B, and C. Label arrow means what? When you draw the arrow, right, you have to label this arrow as this is for part 1. Okay, because part 2 also asks you to draw label arrow. Can you see that? So therefore, there will be a lot of arrows here. So which one is for part 1? Which one is for part 2? So that's why they say label. Right? Label doesn't mean label the name. Label which question you are referring to when you draw the arrow. Okay, so I'm going to enable annotation for you to draw the arrow. Who wants to draw? Okay, nobody wants to draw. I'll call your name, okay? Sufyan? So do part 1, please. So yes, the annotation is correct because the water will move down water potential gradient. So negative 800 is actually bigger than negative 1000 kilopascal. So it's this direction, and then label it as 1, 1, and 1. Okay, so well done, Sufyan, this is correct. So what about water vapor diffusion? So can you show in the diagram the direction in which the water vapor will diffuse? Tan Jia Ying.
From the cell membrane.
Okay, you need to draw.
Okay.
You need to draw. It's annotation. Okay, you click your annotate symbol. Yes, very good. So you draw. Some more. Yes. Okay, well done. So well done. So for this arrow, then you label part 2 and part 2. Okay, so correct. So first, the water vapor will appear over here because this is where the water at the surface of cell wall evaporates. So it appear at the wall first. So from the wall, it will move to the intercellular air spaces or substomatal air spaces, pass through the stoma and go to the atmosphere. So correct, all the answers are correct. So no need to look at the mark scheme because it's correct, okay? So now the next question. The transport of water in plants depends on the ability of water molecules to form hydrogen bonds. Explain how hydrogen bonding is involved with the movement of water in the xylem. Okay, how hydrogen bonding is involved with the movement of water in the xylem. So 3 marks. That means you need to focus on talking about the hydrogen bonding one for these 3 marks. So within xylem vessel, where are hydrogen bondings can be formed? Okay, and how that hydrogen bonding can help in the transport of water up the xylem vessel. So who wants to try first? Just now is who? 2 marks. Who I've not called yet. Gan Yuhan, have I called you?
Haven't.
Okay, would you like to try?
Okay. Water molecules will form hydrogen bonding with the lignin and cellulose to climb up the xylem.
So there is a hydrogen bond between water molecules with the cellulose, lignin and cellulose. Very good. Which part of lignin and which part of cellulose? This one I open to another person, okay? So more people can collect points. Thank you so much, Gan Yuhan. Who wants to try? Who have not called yet? I think I've almost called everybody. Lo Cesian, have I called you?
No, teacher.
Okay, yes.
Maintain the to prevent the falling of the column of water.
So this to, are you reading from the mark scheme?
No.
No, don't read from mark scheme, because you're able to formulate the answers on your own, then your understanding become better. So this attachment of water molecules to the lignin and cellulose is called what?
Sorry?
Attachment of water molecules to the lignin and cellulose wall. What is the name given to this process? Adhesion, right? So adhesion is a biological word. So you write this word, you get 1 mark. Okay, so there's an adhesion due to hydrogen bonds between water and the lignin and cellulose at the wall. Right? So this one will maintain the water column inside the xylem vessel. That means you make sure that the water column remain inside the xylem vessel. It will not fall off. It will not fall down. Okay, so this is very important. Very good. Anything else? What about the hydrogen bonding between the water molecules themselves? And this is called the cohesion, right? Okay. So it is a cohesion that will pull the water molecule up together due to transpirational pull. And then there's another detail which we can talk about is the water molecules forming hydrogen bond with the OH that you can find in the lignin as well as in the cellulose. So this is more detail. Okay, so let us check the mark scheme whether it's correct. So I'll add 2 marks for you. Okay, thank you, Cesian. Right, so first, because of hydrogen bonding, water molecules are attracted to each other. And there's no mark given for hydrogen bond because hydrogen bond is already stated in the question, right? So therefore, no mark in the answer already. So hydrogen bonding is the bonding that cause the water molecules to stick together or to be attracted to each other. And this is a so-called, there is a cohesion between the water molecules. So it is the cohesion tension that pulls the water molecule up the xylem vessel into the into the leaf. Okay, so see there's one mark here, right? Then there's an adhesion of water molecules to cellulose lining or cellulose wall. This is to maintain the column of water so that it will not fall off. Okay, so AVP means any other valid point, means give more detail. Like for example, I said the water molecules form hydrogen bond with the OH in cellulose and lignin. So here they say, for example, reference to cellulose is hydrophilic and reference to the hydrophilic parts of lignin. So the moment you say hydrophilic, hydrophilic means water loving. Water loving means you can grab water molecule. You love water. So when you love water, what do you go and grab them, right? And you go and hug it, isn't it? Okay. So when cellulose and lignin have got hydrophilic part, this part will be able to be attracted to water molecules, and in this case, they form hydrogen bond with water molecules because it is the OH. So OH can form hydrogen bond with water molecules. So here you learn how to describe which part of cellulose and lignin will attract water molecule is the hydrophilic part. For me, I will say that the OH in the cellulose and the lignin can form hydrogen bond with water molecules. So this is even more crystal clear than only hydrophilic alone. I will always go for a more crystal clear answer. But if I want to make sure I score maximum, I will also write hydrophilic, and then I will also write OH forming hydrogen bond. Okay? So hope you learn how to maximize the marks that you can gain from a question. So in the next topic for today, we'll be covering transpiration.